Namaskar and welcome. So we're still by our beautiful platform by the lake that the volunteers constructed, and it's already one of my favorite places to be. We're going to continue on the same theme as the last episode, which was embrace the discomfort of war, but perhaps in a little more pleasant sounding format. So the phrase for this week is the bliss of saying no. The bliss of saying no. And it's exactly for the same situations when you're trying to create a new pattern, to give up an old habit, to develop a new habit, to be more disciplined, and to take on discipline in a positive way. And the word discipline is surprisingly controversial, especially among young, free-thinking people who we have a lot of at There's a tendency to equate discipline with the loss of freedom. But actually, the way that the yogis see discipline is as not the loss of freedom, but the means to freedom. So as long as we are controlled by our desires, that's a kind of slavery. It's not freedom. When we can have desires, but we have some element of control over them, and we can decide the time and the place where we want to fulfill those desires rather than letting the desires themselves decide the time and place. When we can, have a gentle restraint, the ability for moderation. I love the phrase from the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says that yoga is not for those who eat too much, and not for those who eat too little, not for those who sleep too much, and not for those who sleep too little. So that middle way, that balance, but that implies discipline. It implies also tolerance, self-knowledge, acceptance, a little bit of, kind of knowing one's own nature and limits. It's not rigid. But certainly to follow that path of not for the one who sleeps too much and not for the one who sleeps too little, that needs some discipline. And if we have that kind of discipline, then we can come to our meditation feeling fresh, alert. We can keep our mindfulness and not get, when we don't have discipline and we get our passions or our desires control us, we very quickly lose our mindfulness. So discipline is essential for mindfulness. And so having a positive attitude towards discipline is a major change for some people. It doesn't come naturally. It's something that we have to teach ourselves. And this phrase I find very helpful for creating that kind of positive mindset. So the bliss of saying no. And what it does is it puts our attention on the peaceful state of mind, the calmness, the mind, with that pleasant state of mindfulness that comes immediately. We make a choice not to follow our immediate desire and choose instead or prioritize instead a state of peaceful, calm and self-control. So when we are faced with a situation where we have to exercise some self-control, we can suffer more or suffer less in that situation, depending on what aspect of that situation we focus on. So we can focus on the difficulty, the hard part, the saying no, the discomfort, the unpleasantness of not getting what our desires want. Or we can focus on the blissfulness of staying in a calm state of mind. And what I find is if I use that phrase, I can almost switch immediately to something which gives me joy and pleasure. That is mindfulness, calm state of mind, and see how I'm getting that by making this choice, right? If I don't focus on the bliss of saying no, I can focus on the unpleasantness, the discomfort of saying no. And when I focus on the unpleasant aspect of that decision rather than the blissful aspect of that decision, then I suffer more, I increase my suffering. So there's going to be some discomfort that you will inevitably face when you make such a decision, but you can minimize that discomfort. You can make it last a very short period of time by shifting your attention to the positive aspects of making that decision, right? The blissful aspects. And here I'm reminded of a discourse of our guru, Sri Sri Ananda Murti, who the title of the discourse was Bliss and Pleasure. And he was just outlining the difference between short-term pleasure and long-term bliss. And pleasure being more of a sensory nature, and bliss being more of that quality of just chill and mindfulness and, that certain steadiness, strength, and quietness of mind that we enjoy when we make decisions that are good for our peace of mind. So that's the phrase for this week, the bliss of saying no. Something that can help you make difficult decisions, and we're faced with them, every moment of the day. Make you make those kinds of decisions more. Make you make positive changes in your life, in a way that minimizes the pain and focuses on the bliss and the sweetness of that change. Again, referring back to the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that you can choose something which is pleasant in the beginning and painful later, or you can choose something which is painful in the beginning and pleasant later. But our guru kind of gave a later take on that, and he says, well, there is a choice that is blissful in the beginning, blissful in the middle, and blissful in the end. And that means that if you can make difficult decisions and difficult changes while keeping your focus on the bliss, while keeping your focus on God, even though you may face some kind of maybe a physical difficulty or a mental difficulty, your inner being will be experiencing bliss because it's keeping that spiritual focus. And I'm sure many of you have had that experience where you can be suffering on one level, but extremely or pleasantly calm and having a state of well-being on another level. So your inner state is one of well-being, but you might have to face some external difficulties. It takes some effort and time and experience to get there, and I can say I, for one, am certainly not able to maintain that at all times. But the attitude of keeping one's focus on the bliss helps, is certainly a helpful element in achieving that. So there you go. I hope you find that helpful. Namaskar.